Are you an aspiring leader who knows you have more to offer but you can't seem to get ahead? Do you frequently feel overwhelmed and under-supported? Listen to the Overcome to Become podcast as we talk about actionable tasks and mindsets that you can apply to begin leading yourself. Hi, my name is Angela Buckley, your host and author of the Strength in Nature Leadership Series. I'm a mother, consultant, triathlete, and author. In Overcome to Become, I share with you the science-backed and experience-proven lessons I've learned in my own leadership journey to beat burnout. Thanks for listening. Welcome to this episode of Overcome to Become. My name is Angela Buckley, and I am here today with my guest, Susan Zartman, and we are going to be talking about nature and nutrition. So that's been the focus of this season. And Susan is a weight loss coach. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And so we're going to talk about some of the things that we face when we are looking at overwhelm. How does that stress cause us to gain weight? And then what are some of the strategies that you walk your clients through to help them get back on a path for health? Is that right? Does that sound good? Okay, excellent. So first of all, I want to start off and say thank you so much for joining me and sharing all of your experiences. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your story and also maybe some success stories of some of your clients as well, if you want to share.
Sure.
Okay.
You can do that.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting to be here and appreciate it. It's like, hey, we've all been through a lot of overwhelm in the years here, right?
The last few years have been so rough for so many people. And I also wanted to call out, like, some of your hobbies is also playing piano. So we're so lucky to be here today, right in front of this beautiful instrument.
Oh, it's pretty. It's okay. I can play it.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
So tell me a little bit of how you got started on your journey, if you would, and a little bit about your company and how you're helping people.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Well, for me, my weight has always been an issue. I don't remember a time when I didn't struggle with my weight or wasn't aware of it from the time I was a kid.
Okay.
And even though I look back, and even in college, I really wasn't that heavy.
Okay.
But it was heavier maybe than some, but it wasn't like really heavy. But I always thought I was. So I just always have just struggled with that and just kind of felt defeated.
Okay.
And tried just about everything I could think of. And yeah, I could lose some weight, but it always came back on and brought more with it. And it's
Right.
like, oh man.
Right.
So it just got really crazy. And I saw my doctor in February 28th of 2014.
Okay.
And I weighed over 300 pounds. And he wanted me to look at bariatrics, and I knew that wasn't the answer. My sister had actually had the full Roux-en-Y bariatric surgery,
Okay.
and I don't want to go through that. I'm a wimp when it comes to pain. I don't choose it, but I also saw that unless you work on this and you change your habits and your mindset, it doesn't stay off, even with something that drastic.
Right.
So I knew that really wasn't the answer, but I didn't know what was.
Okay.
And I'm still a work in progress.
Okay.
But I just really prayed for 6 months that God would give me an answer, and it came on Facebook.
Right.
Yay, Facebook.
Hey,
like, yay.
social media is what it
works.
is, right?
So a friend of mine posted about a meltdown challenge, and I thought, what the heck, let's try it.
Sure.
So I got involved, and what I saw was it was a company that they did this stuff, but people were getting healthy, losing weight,
Okay.
but they were focused on habits. And a lifestyle, and I've always heard every program I've done talks about lifestyle, but they never really gave me the tools to realize how it's going to go forward.
Okay.
And I think sometimes you get stuck in that trap, and it's like, and a lot of us that just want to lose the weight, we don't know how to think beyond that. I said, I'm still working on it.
Okay.
You know, it's always a progress. So Jesus calls me home. I'm a work in progress. It's like, oh man. So I reached out and I decided to give her program a try. So started October 31st of 2014.
Okay.
And that was right before my birthday, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year. And I'm thinking, what the heck? Originally I was going to wait. And she's like, yeah, but if you started now, you might be down 20 pounds by the new year. And I'm like, why wait? I knew with as much as I had to lose, to do something. So I started, and then by the new year, I was actually down about 25 pounds.
Wow.
I'm feeling encouraged and just felt good. It was like, this isn't difficult. I like the program we've got set up here and eating. So kept going, and over about a year and a half, lost 137 pounds. And it changed my life.
Okay.
And so really being mindful of those habits and learning stuff. Like I said, I'm still learning. It's like every day there's something new and just getting stronger. And I'm excited to be able to help friends because they started going, what are you doing?
Good.
So I started in 2015 helping my first friend, and have just been so honored to help a whole bunch of people to create health in their life because they're doing the work.
Right.
And we're kind of called independent certified health coaches.
Okay.
But I like to say I'm just the chief encouragement officer.
Right.
Chief encouragement officer. I can say
Nice.
that. And because you know what, I just come alongside partner. I'm not really, it's not like the typical coach kind of get in there and dig in deep, like a lot of deep coaching lecture. It's more come alongside, help you, and what do you want, and how can we help you get there? And
I think of the footsteps in the sand.
yes.
Right? Like I really love that poem. And I often think as well when I'm talking about some of my coaching services, I'm walking with you. I'm not doing the work, but I'm walking with you. My son had his first job and I helped him make his first little resume, right?
That's awesome.
And I said, well, what do you think of it? And he's like, but Mom, it's all you. I'm like, no, there's not a thing on the resume. I put you in that place, but you did the work, right? Like you got that grade, you entered the triathlon and you won the triathlon. I didn't do it. I simply put you in the position to do it. And I think that's part of our job is coaching, parenting, but right, like I'm allowed to talk about him, but you did the work. And so I love being a part of your journey, but I don't need that credit.
Exactly. Or it's like you're facing a challenge. Let's talk about it and say, think about it ahead of time. If you picture it ahead of time, you set yourself up for success.
Right.
And so just walking through, okay, what do you do when you go to a party? Okay, the friends are having this get together. What do you want to do at this restaurant? Or whatever those things are. And just kind of, hey, these are some things that work. What do you want?
Right.
And it's like, if they don't want it, they feel deprived. And then it's like, who wants to stick with something where you feel deprived and miserable all the time?
No.
No fun.
Well, and I appreciate that you're talking about health, not weight.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've had conversations with people and they're like, well, it's easy for you because you're skinny. Or it's easy for you because you like to work out. Valid statements, right? Like, perhaps it is easier because I didn't kind of go as far. But I think that the people that I've surrounded myself with, the people that are in my life, we're not talking about our weight, we're talking about our health goals. And even in the competitive athletic community, we're talking about our health goals when you're talking about sustainable health, right?
Exactly.
Like I go out to these races, I'm at Worlds with women who are 75 years old and they are jumping in the water doing the same race course, and it's about focused, sustainable health goals. One lady said, when I'm 90, I want to be able to go to the bathroom by myself. That's my goal, right? Like, you know what? She's not wrong, right? So I think when we don't always talk about that weight and we focus on our health goals, that mental twist also helps us avoid the overwhelm of standing on that scale every day and it doesn't move, or it went up because I drank water or had a glass of wine last night, right?
You know, it's just data and not letting it be the jury and going, you're bad. No, it's just like you're making choices, but like any scientist, you want to look at those numbers and figure out how it is impacting you. I heard somebody talk about the life thing, saying they want to live long and die short. So I want to be so healthy that you're living as long as you can, and then when it's time to go, it's a short time, rather than so much in our society where a lot of people died 20 years ago, but they're still alive.
The body's there.
You know? And it's like, I don't want to live that life. I want to be vibrant as long as I can be. And
a lot of the research actually supports that. If you are truly following a healthy lifestyle, you're not necessarily living longer in numerical years, but you're thriving up until the end, and then we all have a natural end, right? But you're meeting that natural end with far more grace, and so live it out, right? Like having fun all the way up until that point. But we know the point's coming. Why not enjoy all the days up to then instead of through pain?
Yeah. And everybody's got a different path. It's not, you never know. Some things aren't necessarily lifestyle related, but we know that carrying a lot of excess weight, it does have impacts on a lot of our health. That's more of the reason to do it. And when I put on a little weight over COVID, so I'm like, hey, I'm not where I want to be right now. I'm working on that again. It's good. But it's like, you know the difference. And it's just like, I've got the skills, and it's like, it's fun to be able to, okay, we're doing this.
And I look at, for myself, I don't look at my weight, I look at BMI, right? So, and I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, and in our family, we have very tight windows before we start showing sugar. So I only have a couple pounds to play with before I'll start showing higher sugar levels. So I pay attention, not because I care about my clothes fit, although that's a benefit, but because I absolutely know that I do not want to have diabetes. If I can avoid it, I will do what is necessary to avoid that. And so paying attention to those extra couple pounds for me makes a difference, but it's not weight, it's the muscle ratio, right? Yeah. So that BMI, and I have an expensive scale that takes into account the amount of time that I'm exercising, that takes into account your muscle ratio and age, and it gives me more of a BMI calculation, not just reading off of the charts.
And it's not just the BMI number, because that number they're saying I mean, it's a tool that lets you know you're in a kind of a range.
Yes.
But again, it's like a guy or a gal that's super muscular can show up really high on the BMI, but totally be healthy. So it's realizing, like you said, knowing those muscle and ratio and the fat and whatever, that's all so important to look at it all and not just go off of one thing.
That's right.
The skinny person doesn't win.
It's
that goal. Like the skinny people can be unhealthy too.
But I know what numbers work for me, and I know where I need to be for good rest at night, and how that all, like, there's a couple things that I look at, right? I look at my sleep, I look at my nutrition, I obviously look at like my physical exercise, but those all tie in to helping me be more functional during the rest of the week. Right?
Totally. Because you can tell such a difference. It's like you miss a one night's sleep and it's like all of a sudden it's amazing how you feel like a stupor, and it's like, oh my goodness, you don't realize what an impact it can have.
It's true. Water, sleep, these things are a big part of overcoming overwhelm. And I feel like it's interesting. I, for one, when I'm stressed, I don't drink as much. Like, I would prefer to pick up that cup of coffee, but I really need the glass of water.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how I have to mentally say, no, I need water, not coffee.
Yeah.
Right.
We're programmed to think, that coffee's going to be what we need, caffeine. But I always feel like I'm a plant, and when I get a little dehydrated, it's like I drink that water, and all of a sudden you kind of like perk up, and it's like it brings your insides alive, and you feel good. And that's kind of how the plants are at my house, because I forget to water them a lot too. And so I see how it works on them, and it works on my body that way too. And it's like, I feel so much better. And just, I know when I'm not making healthy choices, I always say I feel like there's sludge in my veins.
Yeah.
And you just feel, and you didn't realize how bad you feel until you feel good, and you go, I like this feeling much better, and having the energy and the clarity of mind, and such a difference.
Yeah, it's fun. It is absolutely fun. So, we have a visitor.
And we got this cute little poodle dog down here. He's here, he's so cute. So, hey, if you see my hands moving, that's why.
He's coming for a little extra dose of love here. So that's the other way
Talking about overwhelm, pets are great. It's like, they just really... They can add so much. Personally, at home, I have dust bunnies, but I'm doing a lot of pet sitting, so I get to love on a lot of dogs right now.
Oh my goodness.
I love it. Yes, I do.
So we spent a lot of time selecting this particular pup because the poodles don't shed as much, and I really don't enjoy dust bunnies. So, and I am the one who gets to clean all the dust bunnies, so I said poodle it is instead of something that sheds more. So again, just trying to make decisions that fit our lifestyle. Yes. And so he's a smaller dog that he backpacks really well with us. Aww. He definitely high energy, handles the long distances well, but then doesn't shed in my house. Like, for me, perfect combination.
Here he comes.
There he is.
You get to see the back of his head. See, yay. My sister has 3 huskies.
Oh my.
When she's brushed them, it looks like it snowed inside her house. She used to do that in the yard.
I had a golden, and I took her to the park every year, and I would shed her in the park, and then the birds could come pick up and line their nests, and they appreciated that. So good. And I appreciated not having it all in my house.
Yes, you're perfect. You're a sweetheart. Yes,
oh my goodness, you're not always perfect, but you're sure behaving for the camera right now.
You're doing good. Yes, you are.
Yeah, high friend.
Well, it's just like, it's one, I think too, with the whole health thing, it's like overwhelmed when you think to try and change it all. So the biggest thing is just like do one thing, take a step in the direction. And so whether I like to tell that when I first started, I had so much trouble walking. And I've got really bad ankles and feet anyway, but carrying 300 pounds was not helping. And I can remember the day I drove over to the Big Lots there in Polaris, sat in my car, and I wanted to go in. I love to shop, I like bargains. So I sat there, I hurt too bad. So I ended up sitting there a few minutes and just started my car and went home. I just couldn't stand the thought and the pain it would take to walk into the store and then at the store. And then after I started my weight loss journey and then shed, I don't know how many pounds at this point, but a few months into it, I remember a day at my lunch break, went out and I made one lap around the parking lot at work.
Good for you.
That's all I could stand. I got in my car and chilled. Next day, I made myself do 2 laps. I kept building it up until in September of 2016, I had an Air Force officer put a medal around my neck as I crossed the finish line for the Air Force Marathon 10K.
Nice.
And I never thought that was possible. Actually, I told my sister in December, I think I'd like to maybe try a 5K and see if I can do that. She registered us for the 10K. I thought she was nuts. But it was until September. So ended up doing it. I've done it a few times. But it's like, and that's a strain on my ankles and stuff still. But it's like, I can do it. And it's like, wow.
It is. It's important.
Yeah. So it's just like those little steps. Or if you aren't drinking much water, just add a cup a day. Just start building things up. And it just makes it so much simpler.
I always encourage people to park at the farthest end of the parking lot. I know it's a game. I know it's like competitive, right? Like, oh, I get the best parking lot and I'm going to manifest that good, perfect parking spot close to the door. But a lot of times people gain over, especially for that kind of middle-aged, mid-weight pudge, right? You start gaining about 10 pounds a year, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, 5 years in, that's 50 pounds, but you didn't really realize it because it's such a slow gain. It really, for most people, is only 100 to 200 calories a day. And
which is nothing.
Which is really nothing. It's a Snickers bar, right? So what could you do to eat one less bite or two, one glass of wine fewer, or parking out further? And so it's really super tiny shifts. And honestly, that's what happens, I believe. Like, I was able to get back pretty quickly after my pregnancy because I was training for an Ironman when I got pregnant. So I was already pretty fit.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I didn't get into, like, let's say, weight trouble until my child was a toddler. And their eating habits are horrible. Like, Mom, I'm starving, I eat everything, and then Mom, I eat nothing. And if you come from that mindset of like clean
Don't
plate,
want to waste it.
I didn't want to waste it. Exactly. And so I would eat his plate, but I had already eaten, and I never honestly had any clue of what I was taking into my mouth. And again, truthfully, I've always kept my weight pretty tight, but it's still something that you're aware of, like, right? The weight was no longer in those muscles. It was a little bit here, but everyone's like, you did such a good job after the baby, but it wasn't like that time was easy. He was sleeping. I could exercise. It was when they stopped sleeping. My life went crazy, right? And I think every parent probably
and you weren't getting
crazy.
as good as sleep, and so that messes with your whole thing and your hunger, and it's like it just
it's taken me 10 years to get back to real sleep, right? Like after that. So, and he stopped taking naps. He was jumping out of the crib, and
and we do a technique. It's called stop, breathe, challenge, and choose. So you're just like whatever you're doing. So just it's okay. You see that cookie, stop and go. Wait a minute. Do I really want that? Is it going to get me to my goals? And then you take a breath and just give yourself, just putting the pause button on. And sometimes you go, you know what? I don't really need that now. And I know I'm not going to feel that great. Yeah, it would taste good, but well, maybe tomorrow. And if you always kind of just go, tomorrow, it's like you can just save yourself some of those little choices. But so often, like you said, it's just mindless.
Right.
We aren't even aware of what we've done.
Right. So I like to talk about systems and how do you build habits that help you succeed. First of all, defining what success looks like, and for me, again, it's health goals, not weight. Right? Like, I think weight is such a trigger for so many people, but health goals. And then are you choosing in line with your values and your health goals? I think that's like that big challenge.
And no, you're not going to be perfect. And it's like we learn from our mistakes too. So it's like sometimes you go, man, why did I do that? okay, next time I'm confronted with that bowl of Grater's ice cream, I'm gonna think again, or you know, whatever. It gives you those, you learn from those things, and it's like, oh well.
It's also fascinating. So my one store-bought cookie that I like is Oreo. And we don't eat a lot of store-bought cookies. Like, thankfully, we've just grown up baking and cooking, but I really like Oreos. And we've had so few that recently, it was National Oreo Day. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Probably.
But this lady at work brought in all these different flavors. I didn't even know there were so many flavors. Like,
marketing geniuses.
And so I was like,
what?
I'm going to eat Oreos, right? And I did. I had admittedly more Oreos than most people would think I would eat. But it was across a few days because they didn't all go away. And there were so many different flavors to choose from. But honestly, they don't taste as good to me anymore, right? I think your palate changes. At the beginning, you really did want to go back to it, but as you sort of move into your health journey, some of those things that you loved, you find that you don't love them anymore. Your body sort of is like, no, I now taste how that doesn't fit for me.
Yeah, you do. And they say, I think the research is that every 2 weeks, you get a new set of taste buds.
Really?
So, yeah. So if you are making that change and you're consistent for a couple weeks, you can see some of those changes.
Okay.
And so it's kind of interesting. So if you don't like something, give yourself a couple weeks and you may like it next time. And
I definitely knew that about like young children, right? You definitely, you don't just say, okay, you don't eat it. You just reintroduce it, and maybe even introducing it in different ways as they grow. But I didn't know that even for adults as well.
So it's cool. We use some meal replacements with the program that I coach.
Okay.
So sometimes, especially if people have had really out there diets that weren't eating too healthy, changing to something healthy, all of a sudden they may not be so happy with some of those choices. But it's amazing how I didn't like that at first, and now it's like it's one of my favorites.
Oh.
So it's kind of fun. It's like hang in there and like just push through a couple weeks here, and it's not like it's gross, but it's like eat the things you do like. And
sure. And then slowly make that transition.
Yeah, but you're right. When you go back, my brain will tell me, oh, you really love that banana split from Dairy Queen or whatever the thing is. But if I really think about it, I know if I eat that, my tummy is not going to be so happy.
Right.
And for the first few bites, maybe it'll taste okay, but I know I'm not going to feel that great.
Gotcha.
But your brain it goes back to what it knows and what that comfort is and the associations. It's like, oh, our minds.
So my girlfriend wrote a book called Every Time I Diet, I Gained 5 Pounds. And it's based on neuroscience, so not dissimilar to what we're just discussing right here. But she goes through the book and talking about not just saying no, but saying yes to what you do like, finding those healthy habits, and you have to experiment a few times, right? Yeah. Keep working to find the healthy habits that fit for you, and then all of a sudden this healthy change is not as overwhelming because you're looking for joy instead of saying no to something.
Yeah, exactly. Because you say no and you don't think about the elephant, you're going to think about it. You know, just kind of that whole concept. Oh, I can't have that. Then you feel deprived and it's like, what? Right. I can. So we say, it's always your choice.
Right.
You know, so if you want it, you can have it. But you may or may not. Do you really want it? You know, it's like I'm thinking. It's like
There's value in manifesting what you want, right? So I want to be healthy. I'm going to think about healthy, and I want this healthy food to taste good. It's going to taste better as you go through that. I think there's a lot of value in understanding that you see what you look for, right? I want to buy a red car. Suddenly, everybody has a red car.
You didn't notice them before. It's like, what?
You didn't notice them until you decided, or were looking at one or something and trying to decide. So how can you use these funny quirks of our brain to work for ourselves when we're just trying to overcome overwhelm and when we're trying to work on our health journeys? I think it's a fun game. And honestly, you get better at it, right? Like,
I play detective when I go to the restaurant, knowing kind of what my parameters that I want. So what on this restaurant menu will fit what I really want. And it's like, so it's kind of like a thing. And with the treats and stuff, they say you only taste really maybe the first 3 bites.
Okay.
So savor those, enjoy. If you got something you like, try it and really enjoy it. And then notice when you're not having that enjoyment anymore, say, okay, I've had enough. And just learn, because most of us keep shoveling in as long as it's there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if we learn to stop when we're satisfied, that's huge. And it's like listening to our bodies.
Well, that's a good point. So if you look over the history of kind of time, like the last 50 years, plates have gotten bigger. Physically, plates have gotten bigger. Yeah. And now we have chargers and everything. So when I serve meals, fancier meals, I'll pull out the china and I have a charger and I have the big plate that's there, but I also end up serving on our salad plates. And I might have two, like we don't have as big gatherings as we used to have, right? So now I have more plates than I need. But we would serve on the salad plates. First of all, they're fun because they're more ornate, but they're smaller. Yeah. Right? And now, if you want a second helping, you can, but you can also get a second plate, but they're still smaller, and it forces you to slow down. It forces you to ask that question, do I want another bite, instead of just like the game of like, let's haul down. And it helps. But even if you look in the 1930s when martinis and all these cocktails were being developed, they were really only this small. Like if you look at what the FDA calls a size of your alcoholic drink, it's actually not that big. Yeah. And yet, if you look at the martini glasses that I just got in the last 10 years, they're huge. It's 4 servings of alcohol.
They're crazy.
In one glass. And so then you think, but I only had a glass. But by FDA standards, you've now had 4, if it's a martini, you probably had 4 shots, right? It's not healthy.
No.
So how do you, like, again, all right, I really, to be honest with you, don't want 4 shots. I like martinis. I would prefer to have
one
martini. But trying to like mix and match and have that glass of water or something else, or the smaller serving, it makes you more cognizant.
Plus, it's your brain and perception. Mm-hmm. So the thing would work with the cups or the plates, but by being a 9-inch plate, and they actually say the color of the plates matter too.
Oh.
So if you're doing like a blue or green plate, that's a little better than a light colored plate. Think about it. If you got this 9-inch plate and it's blue, and you put like, say, mashed potatoes, something starchy that you probably, if you're trying to lose weight or eat healthy, you're not gonna eat tons of that, or bread, it's white. So you're gonna put it on there, and it's like, on that, it's really gonna stand out. Oh. If you have a white plate, you can put a whole bunch on, and your brain's not registering. On the blue or green plate, you're putting the broccoli or the salad or those healthy things. It's the opposite way. If you put on the white plate, it looks like you're getting a lot. Where on the blue or green plate, your brain's not perceiving as much. Oh. And by having the smaller plate, you got this much food on it, it looks like you got a full plate, so you're getting to eat a lot. If you put that same amount in this big plate, it looks like you're not getting very much. So your brain's thinking, so it's kind of like, I think that science that our program has talked about that, and then James Clear, and Atomic Habits gave it even a layer of explaining that. It made it even more understandable. And it's like, that's how that works. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing to realize.
Well, it's interesting because I'm thinking now about the plates that I have in my house. Of course, the china tends to be white because that's the thing. Yeah. But I have white with like tiny little blue flowers that I enjoy. But the ones that we eat off, I would say 90% of the time are my dark earthenware, which are blues and greens and browns. And we do not serve German community, because I do a lot in the German community. We do not serve a ton of potatoes. We absolutely have potatoes.
Well, potatoes are good for you too. It depends on if you're trying. It depends on what your rules are for health.
Right.
I'm German too. Zartman. What can we say? That's a German name. Yeah. It's like the background.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think, and there's no foods aren't good or bad. They just sit there. But it is sometimes how it can react in your body, and you just got to be aware of those things, and if it's helping you to get to your goals and balance. So I don't know if you've heard of Dr. William Lee.
Okay, I have not.
He's I think, physician by trade, but he's also a scientist.
All right.
So he does all kinds of things where his specialty is something with, I don't know if it's blood or cardio, but he actually tests like how the response in your body is for foods. So his first book was called Eat to Beat Disease, and he just put one out that's called Eat to Beat Your Diet.
Okay.
But so I'm just really fascinated by the things that he shared. But I just love it when, like I said, it's not in our bodies, but learning here are certain foods that you might want to explore.
Right.
And he's some unusual ones, like he'll talk about capers being a good thing.
Yum.
But he's also talking about metabolism.
Yes.
And he's talking about about until, I'm not sure these numbers quite right, but from the time you're born till maybe 20, you got one, you're wrong, your metabolism, but from 20 to 60, your metabolism stays the same.
Yes.
And then it starts dropping, which usually before they thought, the older you got, or you get your midlife and it slows down. But actually what they say slows it down is excess weight.
Your habits.
Excess weight. Mm-hmm. So the fat is actually what slows down your metabolism.
Interesting.
So it's interesting that, people that are really wanting to lose it, they've got a slower metabolism because they're in a place where they are. So I don't know, it's just, I'm a lot more to learn from them, but he's got a lot of podcasts out right now with his new book out. Mm-hmm. So, but I just think, like I said, I love the connection of the brain and the body and the science, and they're constantly learning more all the time, and there's so many ways you can go. And I think that's part of the confusion. That was my confusion from the time I was a kid, because I'd read about this. Oh, don't eat carbs. Oh, don't eat fat. Oh, don't. And it was like, I would do all these things, and yet I wasn't, it's like, and then, oh no, that's okay. It was just so confusing. So I think you've got to find what works for you and stick to whatever, and be willing to make some little shifts here and there.
I think it's interesting, because we talked before we got started, and I was asking, like, some of the things that you've posted. I'm like, but I knew that. Like this, sometimes I'm like, okay, but that's not new. And I'm always interested in this, process of discovery. So many, many years ago, I thought I was going to make a foray into being a personal trainer. So I have my personal trainer certificate. And to be honest with you, I was not very good at being a personal trainer to the people that I wanted to help, right? Because I didn't understand weight loss journey. I didn't understand the mental and the emotional part of it. I didn't understand why just lift weights. I didn't understand some of the underlying health.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's people. Diet more for losing weight than it is the exercise piece.
Yes,
so it's
right.
Like, what?
Yes, it absolutely is, and we know. I know so much more than I did at the time, right? Like, I totally admit that was not my strongest suit at the moment.
But you went in with the right heart, and you learn and you grow, and it's like, hey, we learn.
And it's interesting. Like, I've seen people have more success through my conversations on overcoming the overwhelm than I ever did, like trying to say, as a personal trainer, just lift more weights, right? And we know so much more about the brain and science, and so I keep my physical. If people ask me questions, I will help, but that's not my focus in my coaching at this point, right? Because I'm just racing for fun. I'm doing what I want to do for myself.
Yeah, and that's cool, and that's what it's about. Find what pushes your buttons, but is moving you forward in your journey. And I'd die if I tried to do what you did. I mean, I would be like crumpled up in bed.
But I think it's important to also say, like, I didn't start at these distances or these speeds or anything. I got there slowly and with help and with coaching and with support and really expensive equipment. And sometimes really expensive coaching and trainers, and like some of the best, like hands down, I'm so grateful for the people that have helped me on those journeys. Yeah. And then
but you made the decision that was something you wanted, and you're willing to invest in it, and it's like whatever that we want to do, that's what I think it is. You decide, that's what I want to do, and even if you decide to be a trainer and you decide that's not it, you haven't lost anything. You've learned a lot, and you help some people along the way too, and it's like, it's not a loss.
Right.
It's like, okay, it's part of who you are now, and probably has helped you with what you're doing for your personal life, if nothing else.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear like how the science is coming along as well. It helps us emotionally. It helps us explain to people as well. And then I think where I was going back was like, how was your journey of discovery? Because my journey, I think, was probably a very different journey of discovery.
Yeah, and it's been learning. I said I'm still on that journey of learning and more. So like the stuff that Dr. Lee is sharing is kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Or, a lot of things that like learn, like I read in the books that we use in our program and stuff. But then I read the thing from James Clear, and it like shed another layer of light on some of the things that we were talking about. It's like, oh, it's just like connecting all the dots. And then just knowing that's like, yeah, I'm not going to be perfect. And it's like, honestly, being a certain weight isn't what gives me value.
No.
And it's like, but I think part of my head is you think, oh, once I get to that place, oh, life would be great. And we've got all these things going, but no, I'm going to be in a thinner body, but I'm still going to be me. I'm going to have my problems. And it makes some things easier and better. But it's like learning that, like, no, like when you cross the finish line of a race, it's exciting. But, you know, a week later, it's like you're on to the next thing or something. It's not going to keep carrying you forever. And it's knowing it's never a finish line. It's just like one more notch in the journey.
Yes. Yeah, it's a milestone.
Yeah,
right?
and celebrate those things, even the little things. Yeah. Hey, when you get that water in the day, it's good to celebrate, or whatever those things are. It's like, we just don't give ourselves enough credit.
Yeah. And
so, with my journey, it was just kind of learning and just growing and learning these healthier. I've learned tons of recipes and so like during COVID, I learned how to edit videos. So I created Healthy Cooking with Z, and haven't done any of those for a while, but just doing recipes that tied in. And it just gave some people some different things to try, and it's healthy food. It's not diet food.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just healthy. It's just healthy food. Right?
Yeah.
So, and it's the mixture that your body needs at that point in the journey, right? Yep. So, to our conversation about potatoes, we eat for certain potatoes and carbs in our house when we have high volume workouts, right? But we don't eat them as much when we have low. And so, I think the challenge is like knowing where you are and adjusting.
Yeah, exactly.
And understanding that. And there is a little bit of science, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help.
No, not at all. And it's good. It's even if it's just a friend to keep accountable and you're linking arms, it doesn't have to be some big expensive coach or anything. It
doesn't.
And it's just, you kind of learn it. Like, you learn from each other. There's tons of healthy communities out there.
Yeah.
And it's just like he said, you become like those 5 people around you. So when you get those healthy friends that are practicing that stuff, that'll seem normal to you. It's like it'll be more abnormal to do the unhealthy things when you're surrounded by healthy people.
So that's interesting, because one of the pillars that we talk about in Overcome the Overwhelm in the class is setting boundaries, but also building community. And you need to have the community in order to help you hold those boundaries. So you have to know what your boundaries are, but you also have to have the community that supports you in holding your own boundaries. And how do those two things play together? So to your point, healthy journeys, healthy communities.
Yeah.
Right? Like we were talking earlier, my girlfriend and I would go, when we were back in dating days, right? We would go talk about boys. Instead of sitting on the phone and talking, we knew, like, you're supposed to have those long, slow runs is what we call them. But you go out and you're not supposed to be breathless. Like, that's the cutoff. You're running too fast if you're breathless. And so if you're chatting with a friend, you're running pretty slow.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a quick walk, and it feels very frustrating, but that's actually right where you're supposed to be in order for your body to hit what our sport goals were, right? And that's actually the healthy zone for fat burning. A lot of people think you're supposed to go run or whatever. It's really not. It's the long, slow runs just below breathlessness, and keeping a friend and having that accountability to not run too fast is what I needed, right? And then I had
the camaraderie makes it more fun, and the time passes.
Yep. Yeah. It's absolutely important to have the community be a part of your journey.
Yeah. And then you don't have to shut the people out that aren't living that way, but I think you're aware of it, and you kind of just mentally, you get that little bit of not a wall necessarily, but just because you know what your boundaries are, and it's like, hey, most people aren't going to think twice about what you're doing for the most part. And it's like, if they are, they may be jealous.
That's unfortunate, right? Like, my goal is never to create any sort of jealousy.
No, but some people, it's like they see success and they kind of go, they just aren't willing to do the work, but then it makes the person who is succeeding feel bad, and it's like, wait a minute, nah.
Or they're not aware of the work.
Yeah.
I think too, I was just speaking last night about some of our young musicians, and truthfully, my son started very young in some of his performance, and I have asked him every year to learn a new solo. Well, when you start at 6, by the time you're 16, you have 10 years of a new solo, and he's got these performances that he can put together because every year he learns something more, and he can mix and match, and now he's got, but someone else just sort of sees, well, how do you already have all this repertoire? The poor kid, first of all, didn't have a choice. Secondly,
right, yeah.
But he has done the work because, yes, admittedly, mom encouraged a little bit, but exactly. But now I have musical students that are doing the same thing, and these students are learning, and every year, and then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh, I have this. It didn't feel like you had all of that.
Yeah,
but then
the
next person, what they see is, well, I took these lessons and I did this, but I don't have it. They didn't have years of development.
Oh.
And that's what really
makes a
music,
difference.
Writing, school, like these are years of things that are developing and practicing and reinforcing. And it's, I think sometimes the challenge when people get really overwhelmed is they see the success, but they didn't see the journey that got them there. And I think if you take a step back and you say, tell me about your journey. How did you get here? Okay, if I want to get there, then I also have to follow a similar journey. And nobody's journey is the same.
No.
But I think it helps us understand success and how to get there without being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
what
can
one
you draw
healthy
on
choice at
history?
a time, one little step at a time, and it's like, you'll get there.
Yep.
It's like, but if you don't ever start, you're never going to get there.
Well, there's truth in that statement as well, right? Like, just start.
Yeah, just
Tip,
do something.
one step.
And it doesn't have to be a perfect step. If you aren't sure what that step is, just take a step and you'll learn if that's the right direction or not. And if not, okay, you just take another step the other way, and it's never too late to change.
I mean, we tell people when they ask, like, how could you run a marathon? One step at a time. Like, and I don't say that in any sort of snarky thing, except that it is literally the case. And there's a guy who's super popular in the running community. He's called the Penguin. He is not a fast runner, but he was overweight, and he started and he said, I'm going to, and he walked around the block, and then eventually he ran around the block, and now he owns marathon organizations and organizes. You can go on cruises and you would get off the boat and everybody runs a little bit and runs a little bit and runs a bit, and by the end of the cruise you've run a marathon, right?
That's
so
cool.
And now that he's built communities around getting healthy, but he didn't start there. He just literally walked around the block one day because he said, right, I don't want to walk into the store, my feet hurt. And he struggled, and he got there, and he brought tens of thousands of people along
Look at the
with him in
impact
their
his
journey.
one decision. He didn't even start out because he wanted to inspire people. He just did it, and it's amazing how that can work. And it's so much fun when you are having impact with others.
But I just want to always encourage people to set your goals laughably low. If you are feeling overwhelmed, laughably low is such a good starting point, because then you're not focusing on that overwhelm. Yeah. And it comes and goes. So last year I had the allergy season was horrible for me. And I went from being able to run, I was really excited for my 70.3 to literally worrying if I was going to be able to even swim because my lungs were so infected with, once it went from allergies, I went to infection. I did 2 rounds of steroids to try to get the lungs cleared up. I was literally scared to get in the water and forget the run. I was just going to walk it. I just wanted to finish at that point. Okay, I got through, I raced, lovely. There were no allergens where we were racing, and I had a really beautiful day, and I enjoyed it because I wanted to enjoy it. But then now, as I'm getting ready for Worlds, my race and the exercises that are being put in front of me by my coaches are more and more difficult and longer. And I looked at one and I just remember being afraid. I'm I have done this distance plenty of times. It's in a pool where I know the lifeguards. There's nothing dangerous about this. But when I looked at it on paper, I'm just I could feel my heart. I'm this is ridiculous. But because my experiences last year it was such a struggle. I really was having a hard time breathing, and surprisingly, breathing is a good thing.
Yeah, really keep on breathing. Yeah.
But I was scared, and so but I did it, right? I'm you know what? I'm going to get in the water, and I'm going to take one stroke, and I'm going to finish. And if I need to stop, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do what my body tells me to do. And as I've gone through each of these, and of course, surprisingly, the workouts get harder and longer and faster because that's what they want me to do, and I have goals, and so I do them. But I am finding that here I am, almost 50 years old, I'm building up confidence for things that I could have done just even 3 years ago without even thinking twice about. So your journey is up and down, and we all have roadblocks, and we all have challenges, and you may not see. Okay, I jumped in the water and I did 3,000 meters today, but I was actually scared.
And it looked easy.
But it wasn't at that moment. And 3 years ago, it would have been easy, but somehow today it isn't, because things have happened in the middle of it.
And our brains are set up to protect us. And that's this whole thing. It's like, oh, danger, danger. Oh, that wasn't good last year. No, you don't want to do that. And it's like, wait a minute. No, it's okay. I've done this. You have to kind of teach your brain as a toddler.
You do. You have to and you have to talk yourself through it. Self-talk, right? And just coming through and using all of these lessons that we've learned to sometimes trick your brain to get back into. And also knowing, if I'm truly in trouble, I can get out.
Exactly.
I have to give myself the place, the space, the grace to say, I can always wave my hand and get out if I need to. And thankfully I haven't, but
you know what? It's always there. And it's like that gives you that backdrop, so you let your brain calm down and know, okay, you have a plan. I can do this.
Yeah. So understanding, right? Like I think people don't always see what is overwhelming, and it's actually interesting. So I'm on this Team USA, and we have these conversations amongst ourselves. There's a lot more high pressure anxiety than you might see from the outside, because we're all juggling a lot. We all have teenagers at a certain point, right? Like there's having children, not having children, wanting to have children, but not wanting it, right? There's all of the different things of where you want to be, plus your training, plus obviously all of us have to earn money somehow. Like you start stacking up, it's easy to get overwhelmed. Our opportunity is to say, okay, I'm going to breathe, because here are my goals, and I'm going to work very slowly, and I'm going to set my goals. And like that particular workout was laughably low. I am going to swim to the other end of the pool.
Okay.
Even though on any given day, that's not even a thing for me, right? But today, because I knew what was in front of me, suddenly that felt like a really big deal.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I will take it one lap at a time. And then of course I did the workout. And then afterwards I'm like, I don't even know what I was scared of.
Right.
But my heart was there. Like the heart rate was high, and you just have to go through all of those mental tricks. You have to recognize, like, I am definitely at a point where, how hard do I want to push myself? Well, someone else is going to push, right? If I don't do it, they're going to do it. And again, I have goals, right? But how do you... It's there for all of us, whether it's performance, whether it's health, whether it's just day to day, I need to be at work on time.
Yeah.
We're there, right? Like how do we pull all that together? So grace and space, a little bit at a time, laughably low, like all of these things help us get through the day.
Exactly. And that's the goal. Live through the day, and it's like, we'll look back and go, what was I afraid of?
Yeah.
It was a good day.
It was a good day. Absolutely. So what else would you like to share with people? I think it's probably about time for us to wrap up.
Well, I just think, set your mind to it. You can do whatever you decide, and there's no limitations, and just don't be afraid. Go forward. I let my fears hold me back, and in jobs that were kind of suffocating for about 30 years, where it was kind of stuff, and just that, you know, the unknown, thinking, oh, I can't do that. And you knew the safe place. But it's like, oh man, if I could go back and tell my younger self, it's like, hey, don't be afraid to take some risk. It's okay. And failure's a good thing. I used to, as a musician, to make a wrong note, I'd feel like terrible. I'd play a wrong note on a piano, I'd play in church, and it's like, I'd beat myself up, and I'm like, nobody is even hearing that, really. They're not listening to me critically. And we so often think everybody's watching us. They're not thinking about us as much as we think they are. So I'd say, go live your best life, and there's so much ahead, and have fun.
That's awesome. I think I want to leave with ask for help, and ask for help more than once. So it's not just that we're able to ask for help and maybe we don't get it the first time, but there's actually psychological science associated with asking for the second time. And play on that. And really, if you want to learn and you're not getting to where you want to be, make sure you keep asking. And I think that's when the doors start opening. Sometimes the door doesn't open the first time.
Yeah. Find somebody who's done what you want to do and ask them, how'd you get here? Tell me your journey.
Tell me your journey. Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Susan, how can people get a hold of you if they wanted to reach out?
I'm most active on Facebook. It's Susan Zartman, or I've got like a website that's set up. It's a Linktree thing called Get Healthy with Z, because my last name is Zartman. So gethealthywithz.com, and there's different ways on there, and you can even check out the Healthy Cooking with Z videos and download a free Healthy Cooking with Z cookbook too if you want to find some recipes.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. All of her links will be in the show notes, so surf on over there if you want to get a hold of Susan and ask some more questions. And
Love to.
Join us on Facebook.
Yes. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You've just concluded an episode of Overcome to Become, a leadership podcast focusing on leading yourself first. Thanks for listening. I'm Angela Buckley with Creatively Efficient, author of the Strength in Nature Leadership Series. To learn more about mindsets and leadership, follow me on Instagram at Creatively Efficient.